TSR, the company that started it all for us. They created Dungeons and Dragons, made it rise to popularity, and eventually they fell and were purchased by Wizards of the Coast. What was the story behind all this? What happened back then? Well, a new book just came out called Slaying the Dragon by Ben Riggs, and it talks all about that. So today I want to take a look at this book. Let's get into it. Hello everybody, I'm Joe and this is the DM Toolbox, your go-to place to get all the tools you need to enhance your D&D games. So today I want to take a departure from what I normally do, bringing you reviews of tools and books that you can use for your D&D games, to talk about something a little different, the history of the game we love. TSR was a company that back in the 70s and 80s and even 90s was bringing us Dungeons & Dragons. They created the game, they brought it to its rise in fame, and eventually they just kind of fell off the face of the earth. What happened to them? What was the deal here? Well, Ben Riggs just wrote a book called Slaying the Dragon, and this book talks about that. Ben was basically doing a story for Geek and Sundry when he started researching some of this stuff, and it kind of spiraled and went into a rabbit hole, and he just kept getting more and more information, and eventually it turned into this book. So what this is, basically, like I said, it's the rise and fall of TSR. There's a lot of cool documentaries out there that I've watched, things like Eye of the Beholder and Blackmore and stuff like that do talk a lot about TSR in the early days and different things. So there are some familiar stories in this book that I've heard before, though I feel like you're getting a bit of a more personal and unique spin on them because Ben is talking to specific writers and artists and people who worked at TSR and kind of getting their version of some of these stories and how they remember things happening. And it's really cool. So this book kind of starts off with a little bit of an overview, and it goes through a few things. So, it talks about the birth of TSR, how it got its origins, how Gary Gygax, took some stuff of Dave Anderson's and then created some of his own stuff, and Dave went back, and they kind of went back and forth, and eventually Dungeons and Dragons was born. And Blackmore is mentioned in here, which was, Dave's kind of thing. But we're really focused on TSR in this book. So it talks about how, certain people that Gary found and brought in, how, he hired these young guys out of college, and for a lot of them was their first job. The move to the old hotel from his basement where they first started, things like that. And you get some really funny anecdotes and stories about the shenanigans that went on in there, how they were developing this kind of like spy espionage game, and they were talking about doing an assassination. They were writing this all on paper, no computers back then. And it was on company letterhead, and somehow one of these pieces of paper that ended up in the trash ended up in somebody else's hands, and the FBI found about it and showed up at TSR's headquarters to investigate this assassination. And when they realized, oh, that's just a game, obviously it was kind of a big joke. So a lot of cool stories about that. Then it goes into the Satanic Panic, which a lot of you know about. It's kind of partially the focus of the latest season of Stranger Things. But everybody, generally knows about how in the 80s, a lot of people started, thinking that D&D was, some kind of satanic cult, and anybody who played it was crazy. My parents included, kind of. I was even in the 90s when I first started playing. But even then, that was lingering. My mom would ask me questions about, oh, isn't this game evil? What's this about demons? I had to explain to her kind of, yeah, there's demons in it, sure, and there's also dragons and trolls. They're just monsters that you're facing and fighting, and you're the hero of the story. You're not worshiping these things, although I guess technically you could if you run an evil campaign. But basically, how that was crazy hype. And then what's funny too is when Magic the Gathering came out, I remember stories in the news about how Magic the Gathering was evil. They were showing certain black cards with pentagrams on it and talking about it on the news, and my mom was asking me about that. I'm like, Mom, it's a card game. So that whole satanic panic thing was totally real. A lot of us lived through it, and they talk about that in the book. And then it talks about some of the declines of D&D. It talks about, in one of the chapters I haven't gotten to yet, but I'm looking forward to, is the departure of Wes and Hickman. Right. So for me, Dragonlance was what got me into D&D. Reading Dragons of Autumn Twilight. Wes and Hickman are like idols to me. Like, I can't wait to someday hopefully meet them, maybe at Gen Con or something. But it talks about how TSR started kind of neglecting them and neglecting to pay them well and do things, and how they left and got better deals and stuff like that. So it goes through a bunch of stuff. It's a really cool book. I like I said, I haven't read the whole thing, so it's hard for me to tell you all the different things. But it talks about R.A. Salvatore. It talks about Token, and it talks about let's see here. It talks about Magic the Gathering, obviously, and how they kind of came in and how they were competitors and how they bought them out. And then kind of goes on from there. So if you are at all interested in the history of the game that you love, this book is phenomenal. I mean, I'm seriously, like, if I wasn't in Las Vegas partying all weekend, I would have probably just sat by the pool and read this the entire time, because every time I picked it up, my wife had to pull me away and say, "Come on, we got to go." I did not want to put it down. So I'm hoping to have this thing done by the end of this week, because it is an awesome read. So definitely check it out. I'm going to take a quick second here just to remind you all, if you like the channel, please make sure you're subscribing to it. We're growing. Things are getting really good here. I hope to do more giveaways in the future. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and get notifications so you know when I put out new videos. You can also follow me over on Twitter at @toolbox_DM and on TikTok at DMToolbox. So as far as picking this book up, you can grab it on Amazon or your local bookstore. I'll put my affiliate link to Amazon down in the description so you can pick it up there and help me out using my link. And definitely, awesome read. Really, really cool book. Enjoyed it a lot. I know this is a little different review than what I normally do, but it's kind of like what my nose has been in this week, and I really wanted to share it with you guys. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you like it. Let me know what you think about this book if you have read it. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? What did you like or not like about it? Leave some comments below. And thanks everybody. So that's it for today. And until next time, roll those dice.